It's Sunday afternoon, and everybody's kind of doom and gloom. Well, football season's almost over, although if you count the Pro Bowl, we still have football today, and everybody's getting ready to go on break, and maybe we're disappointed about Cody not finishing the story. Forget about all that because we have you covered here on Sportswire Radio. We are the home of all wrestling matters. And our guest here today is definitely one of the premier people that you've seen, especially in places like Resurrection Wrestling, where he was their heavyweight champion of the world. And you even saw him this past summer in Tennessee Backyard Wrestling's main event for their show Battlefield, where we saw a champion versus champion match. And you most recently saw him at the historic Fallout show and got a huge victory in a gauntlet match against another world champion, a current brand new champion. And we'll maybe talk about that, which is going to lead us to why he's here today to talk about February the 17th, 13 days from now, lockdown. And he's going to be in a match where he can claim more gold potentially in that national championship. He's going to talk about all of that and some. He's even going to talk about a recent guest on Sportswire Radio where he had war after war after war. And I'm sure they'll have more wars, even if it's not in the ring. They'll have those wars on Instagram and who knows what else. But ladies and gentlemen, our guest needs no further introduction. It's time to give him that introduction that everybody else has gotten, especially because he's been a 3-time champion of the world, and he certainly looks to claim another championship to his very, very long resume and talk about who knows what else is on his mind. So with that, without further ado, here in the Sports Report, the number one global sports show from Resurrection Wrestling, the former Resurrection Wrestling, and KOW heavyweight champion of the world. We call him King Rage. My friend, how are you?
Doing good. Beautiful introduction, as always, Mr. Bryce.
Well, you know what's funny you said that because yesterday we had a guy, Sean Joby, the resident rock star in our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, and somebody, actually Nicholas Crenson, who just was in our Hall of Fame, asked me, can you do a long introduction? I was like, well, I'm going to try my best. And we wound up doing a 10-minute speech. I wound up speaking for 10 minutes, which it basically unpracticed, just kind of thinking about all the things. Because I've done so many of these over the years, 5 years. So it becomes like muscle memory. And we just kind of went going and going and going. And Sean Jovi was almost like in tears because he was like, wow, I couldn't believe you said all those things. But I didn't have 10 minutes in me today. But I definitely gave you, I think, one of the better intros today, especially when it comes to our very good friends over at Resurrection Wrestling. Mr. King Rage, there is a lot to talk about because we're going to see you in a cage in a show called Lockdown, which we're supporting because it is Resurrection Wrestling Month here on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station where all wrestling matters. And you are going to be scoring off this time for the national championship against one Drake Golddragon, who you've certainly had some issues with over the past couple of months. And for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, I would certainly like to talk about, from your vantage point, what can we expect?
Well, can I expect from the outcome?
I get right to the jugular, basically. I kind of like
yeah, for sure. What to expect right from the outcome of that match in Lockdown against Mr. Drake Golddragon? Well, what to expect is to me to hold my first ever national championship in my hands after Lockdown for sure. I'll make sure that I'm trying to reclaim my throne, and me and Dragon have some unfinished business because the last match that we ever had was our first match and it ended up in a disqualification. So
Ooh.
now me and him, have our own story to finish when it comes to lockdown on February 17th.
And that's got to certainly almost kind of tell the question on who's the better man, right? Because, a lot of times in wrestling, we either talk about the rubber match or we talk about, well, somebody won because it was unfair, but the record books say, well, you know what, it doesn't necessarily matter. But in this case, the first time you squared off, it was a disqualification, which really means in wrestling terms, they call that a schmaz, meaning that there's no finish. There was no true finish. But this time, I'm pretty sure in a cage coming up here, 13 days from now, I'm going to put the banner up here shortly so people can find out how they can go support Resurrection Wrestling. I don't think this is going to end in a disqualification. And I think the winner is going to certainly have bragging rights for quite a while. And I'm sure for you, you're going to certainly want to add another championship to your resume, King Rage.
Yes, sir. That's the plan. That's how we settle things around here. That's how I do it personally. I have a lot of dues to claim and the long time that I've been traveling as well.
Well, time out for a second. Time out. It's interesting you say something. You said you have dues to collect. You have things that you want to do, and interesting comment there. And I guess I have to wonder, and I'll say hello to some people that are here in a few minutes. But for those that are listening and watching, and even fans of Sportswire that are hearing from you the first time, I mean, what do you mean by that? Dues that you may have to collect on?
Well, what I mean by that is that I have and went on a revenge tour after the first time that I have beaten Cameron Cage, as you know, the KLW is no longer with us so far, and being the one man that rightfully dethroned him as the face of KLW, I took over his company, and as you may know, against all odds, he beat me to
I heard of
become
him. Get on here
unified.
before. Yep, sure.
Yes, to become the unified championship, world championship of Resurrection and KLW. And to be said, he was technically the last champion, and I will give him props. He did beat me in that ladder match. But when I say dues to claim, there is a lot of dues to claim in that situation. See, when I say I went on a revenge tour the first time that I traveled, I showed out, and I made sure I made a name for myself the first time going into TBW. Not only that, beating the Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Gage
The
Flair.
Woo Man himself. Yep, the Woo Man
Yes.
himself. Yep.
First match ever on TBW, beating the man Gage Flair, which is why I say a lot of dudes to claim. If Gage Flair fights me again, I'm sure it will have to be for that Intercontinental Championship. But, which also leads to me with another man that's on TBW, Russell Cooper.
And by the way, interesting you brought him up, and I'm going to say hello to the man you're going to be squaring off here in 13 days from now, but you defeated the brand new Tennessee Backyard Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, and you did that no less than 3 months ago. It was back a little over 2.5 months ago that you defeated Russell Cooper in that gauntlet match, which led to you getting the shot at the national title, but you have a victory over the current TBW world champion. I mean, that's got to certainly give you maybe another stake at coming back into TBW and another main event. And this time, once again, you could be a champion, another champion versus champion match. I think a lot of people this time would want to see you and Russell Cooper square off in a TBW ring and once again see that possibility of a champion versus champion match.
Yeah, going up against the ringleader in that gauntlet match, he actually took me to the limit. I
we thought that the match was over. I mean, he had you, and then thankfully you put that foot on the rope, and the match kept going. And then you one time had him finished, then you had to get it a second time, and you didn't even get your finisher. You had your finisher kicked out of it, but you found another way to do it, and it was almost kind of like you didn't even have time to breathe afterwards because the man you're going to be facing, who we're going to speak with, I'm sure, shortly in a few minutes, came out and attacked you. So even with Russell Cooper, there was no kind of moment of respect or no kind of saying, hey, could we maybe do this again?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The dragon is a tough man. I will
Very
say
tough
that.
man. Very tough man.
The dragon is most definitely a tough man to
He
come
sure is.
across, to even fight. He has went through a lot of battles throughout his career as well. He, so to say, he is one of the best technical wrestlers that we have
Absolutely.
ever
Phenomenal
seen.
talent. And he's been here many times. He's here now, and we're going to probably have him on before the match with you and him. I'm going to get his side of the story. And no question, phenomenal talent. I take nothing away from what the national champion has done.
When you step into the ring with me, though, however, all of that talent, all of that going up against me, against a king that has been at the top of the mountain, has been in that spotlight.
And you've been in a main event where a show had what 4,000 plus views, whatever it was. I mean, you've seen the eyeballs around you. You've been in the big fight. You've been on the biggest stage of them all in this sport, frankly. You've been there and went toe to toe with a company's champion and really had him right where you wanted him. And you've been there, whereas Drake Golddragon hasn't quite been there at the biggest stage yet.
Main event fight field.
That's it.
It's all about the pressure. But when it comes to me, there was no pressure. As a matter of fact, I am that pressure. When I step into the ring, I make sure that you feel my pressure. And the fact is, when me and him go face to face, that pressure will get over him. And as soon as that happens, he's going to let his guard down, and I will become the new national champion.
Let me ask you about something that you just said. You talked about the main event, the big fight feel. And we know that on the 17th, it's going to be a big fight feel because we have a number of huge matches. Certainly your match with Drake Golddragon. We're going to see Jimmy Controversy, Mikey Anarchy, Mac 10, and a fourth participant to be named later. The West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady, and the Wild Beast, Adrian Prince, are going to have a rematch for the World Title. So we've got some big matches. This is a big match, big fight feel. Now, you've been in the big match. You've been in the big fight. So you know what it's like. You were there in TBW. You've also beaten guys who've been champions and world champions. In fact, you've actually defeated the two most recent TBW world champions, the Woo Man, Nature Boy Gage Flair, who held the title for what, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it was. And then you defeated Russell Cooper. So you've been there. Whereas Drake Golddragon, who's, again, a phenomenal talent, but he hasn't been figuratively and literally in the main event. And we know that Lockdown is going to have a huge crowd. And this is going to be one of those matches that people are going to be paying a lot of attention to. Does that help you in that you've been there, you're comfortable in it? Whereas Drake Golddragon, this is kind of all new to him.
Well, to be fair, I would also say this would be my first ever cage match that I've ever going to be a part of, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So with that being said, though, although to make my point across, yes, to have all the eyes on you, the spotlight and everything like that, when it comes to the pressure that the people, everything that really comes down falling into you, just mere talent isn't going to get you anywhere in this business. It comes composure. That right there also saves you in that whole entire main event field. Mr. Drake Golddragon hasn't experienced that yet. He doesn't know how it feels to be world champion. So that is going to get the better of him. And the fact is, he hasn't been in a ring with me in so long. And the fact that I have improved in every step of the way, I will be national champion. Trust me, I will be. That will be the biggest promise that I will make you on February 17th.
Well, let me ask you a question before I put the banner up and obviously start plugging Resurrection Wrestling. I'll ask the obvious question. What would it mean to you to be the Resurrection Wrestling National Champion?
What would it mean to me? Well, it will mean that I kept my own promise, for one. But the second thing, what it would mean for me is that to actually make the title mean something to Resurrection and also further into bigger heights than how it is right now so far. We came across a lot of champions as of late with the national championship. Dustin Alexander,
Yep.
Mr. Prince, and now we have Mr. Dragon. Oh, not to forget a name, but the first ever national champion, Cameron Cage.
And it's funny because I have him here also, and I was going to certainly bring him up, but it's a great roster of talent. I mean, Cameron Cage has been up there. We spoke about his match with the nemesis James Taylor this past summer, and James Taylor's coming back to Sportswire to be inducted into the Hall of Fame next Sunday, right after the Super Bowl. So hopefully you pick the right team. You come back here with us and hang out with James Taylor. But those are some great names you mentioned. Obviously, Dustin Alexander holds a win against some guy, Jimmy Controversy. Not too bad. You mentioned Cameron Cage. We just spoke about him. Adrian Prince is our current world champion. So it's a great list of names that Drake Dragon is right up there with. So you would certainly want to be there. And you've already been at the main event. You've already been a world champion. So for you, I kind of think that this championship, and tell me your thoughts on this, that I kind of see the national championship almost as like our measuring stick here in Resurrection Wrestling. Because if you think about the names that we've had, right? Cameron Cage, you've had many wars with him. Dustin Alexander is gone on his way. And again, he's established himself, and I have no doubt on the 17th, he's going to do something really big. And then you've got, obviously, Adrian Prince, our current champion. So the facts is that this is kind of, in a way, would establish yourself to be the further measuring stick in Resurrection Wrestling. No, do you see that championship, in a way, the national title, as the measuring stick in the company? I know, tough questions here on Sports, but you've watched these shows. You know what we do here at Sportswire. We got to go right. We go for the jugular. This isn't Instagram Live. This isn't some other podcast. I was making this point on the show last night. We had a guy that was on Tyler Ark. He calls himself the Man O'Mashis, and he was trying to confront Omen Black, who's obviously one of the big hardcore wrestlers right now. He's a hardcore guy. And I was telling Tyler, I was like, Sportswire is like the big leagues, right? Some people come on the show, and it's hard for them to deal with the lights. You, though, on the other hand, have been in the main event. You have seen the lights, camera, action. So that's what we got to do here on Sportswire. We try to give you here that opportunity to be in the main event. And, and so I know that you have no doubt that you know what's coming. And I still think it's going to mean a lot to you to win that championship.
It will most certainly solidify me as a superstar on that roster. It will further me, like you said, as the measuring stick. Yes, it will most definitely further me if I'm able to win my first national championship on that roster. And, hey, I mean, perhaps be national champion, but the longest reigning national champion ever. Seen that, and to think about it that way, that's all that's been on my mind this week. I've been training my body to make sure that my body's at peak shape and form to compete at Lockdown. And surely I will capture the gold and it will be rightfully mine. Settling my dues with him, it will be one of the best matches that I probably will have in my career. It will be up there.
Really? Because you've had some big matches. You've been in there with some, really big guys in this sport. For you to say something like that really, I kind of think says a lot, no?
It does. But that, I won't knock it, though. That's just the skill of the Dragon. The Dragon is very talented, for sure. He can unlock bigger potential in himself, but he could also unlock a bigger potential within other people. I would say that, too. You've seen the Prince. They've fought back and forth, and now the Prince is now world champion. Something I never thought that I would see, honestly. I never thought I would see Mr. Prince be world champion, considering that he hasn't beaten me yet. He hasn't even gotten past me, but he's done it to West Memphis. We can't say that too much, but yeah, you get the point.
No question about that here, and I want to say hello to some people here. Let me say hello to my buddy Ron Franklin. How you doing, Ron? Thank you, Ron, for tuning in. Also, I'm going to come back to him. And somebody else, Mr. Cameron Cage, and he says, keep some eyes on the back of your head, Rage. I could be back anytime. What do you want to say to something like that as I put the banner up here for our show?
I'll make sure I keep an eye out for you, Cage. It's not like I've let my guard down around you ever. So, I don't need eyes in the back of my head to see you, to be honest with you. I'm just going to see right through you anyway. So, I'm going to get past you once again. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you do come back. Trust me. Ending you would be the greatest thing that I could ever think of. But I won't say too much about him, honestly.
He's in the past. I mean, obviously, we don't see him currently in Resurrection. I mean, the wars you had with him are legendary. So let me ask you in a different way, though. How did those wars prepare you to where you are today?
Um, as much as I hate Cameron Cage, as much as I don't like him at all, honestly, I will admit that he does owe some credit to a career that he is actually like made out of me, because he's the one guy that actually brought me in. And then first match that I've ever had, like ever, like into this whole entire business, it's just like he saw potential in me and he actually took a gamble on me. But as we all know, that he tried to bury me before I can even get my career started. And thankfully not, he couldn't bury me because there was no chance that he could bury me. I am one of the pillars of resurrection that most people would like to look out for. And to be rightfully said, I was also one of the pillars in KLW that he could not ignore.
Oh my God, you and him. I mean, some of the wars you had were legendary. That's what I said. I mean, you and him were synonymous in 2021 and 2022. I mean, you guys were like, yin and yang. He spoke about it on the show when he was here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've watched that too, and
I know you were here. That's why you're here on Sportswire. That's why right now we're here on a Sunday afternoon, really, because you wanted to be here. You reached out really not long ago at all and wanted to have this opportunity. I mean, usually on a Sunday afternoon, I'm not here, but you asked to come on and address a number of things, and this is kind of why we're here right now live talking about everything that's going on. And I think that certainly it's time to give you that opportunity.
no, thank you for giving me this opportunity for me to talk and speak my mind out, Mr. Bryce. Honestly speaking, though, with Cage out of the picture because of Prince, I must admit that this whole entire situation, this thing that we've got going on, I don't think that this rivalry will ever die. Honestly, it's so much bad blood between us, and the fact of the matter is that even if we may think that we can end this rivalry, it will still continue on probably for like centuries to come. Honestly, it will still be there. It it's I can't say that I've hated a single person ever in my entire life, but when it came to him, he made that possible. But he has also brought out the better in me throughout these years that we.
How did he bring out the best in you?
He made me see that even if you have hate for just like that one person, it won't just stop you, because it never stopped him. He's still reached better heights. He's still been KOW world champion. He's seen heights. He's seen that, and I must admit that I must have looked on and I called next. But also beating him in that triple threat match and for my first ever world championship, he remembers that all too well. But also another man that was in that match was Dustin Alexander himself.
Yep, and the man, the machine himself, we know him very, very well. A man that was here also, and obviously we'll have to find out what happens. But if you do want to go out and support the show, you could do that a couple of different ways here. First of all, on Instagram, if you want to support Resurrection Wrestling, they're at Resurrection Pro Wrestling. If they're on YouTube, like I am, you want to support them on TikTok, on YouTube at Resurrection Wrestling. Also, they have a Patreon page, and yours truly was the first person to have subscribed to the Patreon page, Patreon at Resurrection Pro Wrestling. There's a couple of different ways you can get out and support it. Also, redbubble.com, backspace people, backspace Resurrection Pro. You can buy some merchandise. I even hear through the grapevine, Mr. Rage, that you can actually buy this shirt that we have here, which shows February the 17th. Lockdown, and look at all those big names you see on there, and I have no doubt that you're going to certainly play a huge role, and we're going to see you and Drake Gold Dragon for that national championship. And get this, the doors open at 4:15. Bell time 5 o'clock. And how about this? $7 only if you're an adult to go to a show. You know, I was speaking about this the other night on Sportswire Radio. It is over $20+ to go to a movie these days. If you want to go out and have dinner, you want to have dinner with yours and your other half, it's going to cost you probably close to $100 between the two of you. But for this, only $7. And get who's the host you get to see. Jimmy Controversy, Mikey Anarchy. Mikey Anarchy, only the GTS Intercontinental Champion. Jimmy Controversy's only been a staple in GTS, XPW, Pro Wrestling Venom. Also in some other company you've heard of called the TF Crew. Not too bad. And Mac 10, he's only been in the Carnage Cup, Mr. Mountain Dew himself. And you got a slew of other stars. The West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady, and also the Wild Beast, Adrian Prince. And I want to give a happy birthday, which might actually segue to something else here. I want to give a huge happy birthday here to the hardcore king himself, Atomic Titan. It's his birthday today, and I know he's a man you've shared a locker room with quite a bit over these past several months, and you are certainly going to acknowledge that it is his birthday today, and he is our hardcore king of Sportswire Radio. Of course, he is the only TBW Grand Slam champion. He is also their current hardcore champion, so happy birthday to you, the hardcore king, Atomic Titan. I hope you have a great day, and if you're on Sportswire Radio right now, and we have an internet radio station, which 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can check us out anytime on sportswireradio.org. Also, we're on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579 backspace stream. So check us out here. If you've liked us before, give us a sub. If you haven't yet, we just passed over 500 subscribers. I repeat, we're over 500 subscribers now. So we've gained, I think, 125 in the last 60 days. So definitely I support everybody that continues to help us grow. And I hope you continue to do the same. And also, we're on Tumblr now. We have a big blog. We're at Tumblr at Sportswire Radio, and I'll be live here at 6:30 p.m. So we're going to do a show. I'm going to rest for 10 minutes. Then we're going to have on from Alabama, the war criminal, Dylan Andrews from the Alliance Wrestling League. He's going to talk about the Black Flag Army. He's going to talk about what else is going on in his mind. He is definitely a guy you don't want to mess with. Well, you'll mess with him because you've been in main events. You've beaten a number of different guys. But Dylan Andrews is going to be here live at about 6:30. So it's a little over 90 minutes or so. So look forward to that. But in the meantime, we are here with the man who was the former KOW Resurrection Wrestling World Champion. He was also the Knockout Wrestling U.S. Champion. He's been a 3-time champion of the world in the yard, and his name is the one and only King Rage. And you can follow him also on social media because guess what? We've got his plug. Actually, we don't have your plug just yet. It'll be at Resurrection_Rage. So we'll put the banner up here for him in a second, but let's keep our banner up for our friends at Resurrection. We'll come back to Drake Gold Dragon, but you spoke about different things. You spoke about different places. And I guess it's a good time to ask you, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire, because I've been asking this question to people, because, it's still early in 2024. February feels better than January. March will feel better than February, so on and so on. But we're still, relatively speaking, early in the year. We're just about 5 weeks or 6 weeks into the year. And I have to ask you, what are your goals in 2024?
Okay. Well, my goals in 2024 is to make sure that all my dues are claimed. And what I mean by that is beat every single person that I deem to be a threat. Or not even a threat, so to say. More like is that I have a claim for the Intercontinental Championship at TBW, the world champion himself as well. I also have that claim with Drake, but hey, I want to speak about that too. I have a lot of claims and things to say And honestly speaking, it's just my goal is to become world champion once again, to reclaim
Mm.
my throne, and to make sure to do that at the end of 2024, as soon as I get my chance and the chance to be on top of that mountain again, something that Drake will probably never feel. I'll make sure that I become the longest reigning world champion. And I'll make sure I'll do it again. That is my goal for 2024.
Okay, so your goal is to be the world champion again. But your goal first, before you get there, you got to win the national championship.
It's true, but so to say, if I beat the national champion and I also become world champion, then what?
Well, that would certainly be where you could certainly be, I would suppose, our head of the table. You could be in this sport kind of the king, which is what you are, right? You're King Rage. So if you were to have two championships at the same time, you would definitely be the king. So you would be our King Rage. That would certainly be figuratively and literally of all this sport, no doubt about it. But we spoke a lot about Drake Golddragon, and you talked a bit about the training aspect. You've been training a lot for this match. You've been in big matches, and I'm curious, have you trained for this differently, or going into these next 13 days, will you train for this match differently than, let's say, when you've been in big matches before, or let's say when you were in main events in TBW, like in Battlefield? I'm curious on that.
Whew. Training for this match is it has been a lot more different than all my training that I've been doing since the last few main event matches that I've had. I must admit that the main event of Battlefield has also changed me.
How did it
For
change you? In what way?
it changed me to be that I can't just focus on one aspect of wrestling. It has to be all around. I have to move more vibrant. I have to be more vibrant on the other end. So to say that the Dragon's strongest work is technician. He is very strong technician. And the training that I've been preparing for has been more like I need to keep up with that. I've been training on my technical work every single time. Anytime that I step inside the ring, I've done that. I've wanted to be on this level in that. Striking wise, it's just been I feel like I can brawl with him. So, but the main heavy focus has been technical work, though, I must admit.
Well, you got the size advantage. There's no question you have the size and strength. And there's no question, I would say, you have the experience edge in big fights, but he's one of the best technical wrestlers in the company. I mean, that's a lot to be able to kind of adjust to and adjust to your style. We talk with guys all the time, and, people are known for a certain style of wrestling. You're known for more or less a certain style of wrestling that differs than Drake Golddragon. I mean, how do you expect to be able to prepare for something like this in relatively a short amount of time?
Um, well, to be honest, as soon as I beat Russell Cooper in that gauntlet match, I'm gonna be honest with you. I after that I won, and he attacked me right after that.
Yep,
As soon as
I
that
had mentioned that basically there was no chance for maybe to continue that story between you and Russell Cooper. But I mean, who would have known at that moment that Russell Cooper was going to go on and be the TBW world champion? Nobody knew at that moment. He was obviously holding the briefcase. He shot his shot, and that's kind of why we're even talking about him at the moment.
that's true. And the fact of the matter is, it's just that with the dragon with him, it's different. It is very different to step inside the ring with him, and then for him to also be more all around. He's also gotten better after his fights with Gage Flair and everything like that. The things that he's done is very extraordinary, and I must also say that taking my time with him, it is I've trained my body so much after beating Russell Cooper that I will make sure that even in this short amount of time, I do beat the national champion and become the new national champion right after that. So in a short amount of time, it'll be very. What can I say about that? I haven't trained like this in so long, Mr. Bryce.
Really,
I
really.
haven't, I haven't trained this hard for someone
But
so
you've been
long.
in, but you've been in a main event of TBW. You were in the main event when you were the world champion of Resurrection Wrestling, and you mean to tell me that you didn't train like the way you're training now? You were in a match that over 4,000 people saw. Listen, TBW was just on Barstool. I mean, everybody knows Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. I mean, you mean to tell me that you didn't train the way you're training now for this match?
Well,
I know, tough questions, right? But I mean, the facts are the facts. You have already been in the big game. It's almost like, in a way, if the Lions would have went to the Super Bowl, right? If it was the Lions instead of the 49ers against the Chiefs, right? You're kind of like the Chiefs. You've been in the big game before. You've been the world champion. You've been in big matches. The Chiefs have been to the Super Bowl. This is their fourth time they've been to the Super Bowl in 5 years. They're facing off the 49ers. Sure, the 49ers have now been there twice. But if Drake Golddragon, if you look at him, he's kind of like the Lions. He hasn't been in a big spot before. He's only had here and there moments. But you've been there, done that over your career. So I'm surprised. I would have thought you would have gave the answer kind of like the Chiefs, the professional team. They're used to traveling. They don't go out there and think about the outside extracurricular activities. You've done this before. So you're going to give me that answer. Say, you know what? Yeah, I've been here before, and I've trained like this, and I've got that ability where I've been in big fights, big main events, that I can go out and use those experiences to reclaim a championship and get to what I want, which is what you said you wanted to be simultaneously the national and the resurrection world heavyweight champion once again.
yes, sir. And honestly, Drake is a part of the new era that I started. Ever since that we went against each other against all odds, he's watched me, he's seen me, and he's studied, and he knows a lot of things, probably some things that I may not know, to be honest. So with him, he's watched me since his new era has begun, and he has been conquering any time that he has stepped inside that ring with anyone. Honestly, he's done all that he can, but at the same time, Drake can surpass his limits, but I can also surpass mine and take him over the limit. Make sure that training my body for this has been very difficult. It's been very different than
Sure.
what I am used to, honestly.
Well, it's a certain. Well, okay. Well, we'll phrase it. And there's a pace. The pace is different. There's no question. When you wrestled in that main event in TBW, when you were the world champion, that pace was different. That style was different. You're going to be wrestling a totally different pace, a totally different style in a cage. Now that adds a totally different dynamic. So we'll obviously find out, and we'll come back to that. And I want people to follow you on Instagram. We have your Instagram banner up now at resurrect_rage. So certainly, if you're out there, give a follow to Mr. King Rage himself. I was curious, though, on your thoughts on the assistant general manager, the brand new assistant GM, Steven Silvestri. He's our new GM, and he certainly has a lot of tough decisions to make between now and the 17th of February. And I was wondering, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, what your thoughts are on the brand new assistant general manager, Steven Silvestri.
My thoughts on that is just that with him being the new assistant manager, honestly, I had
Yeah.
no idea. I didn't think
I don't think
him.
any of us did. I don't think any of us had any idea.
I had no clue that he would be assistant general manager. It honestly surprised me, yes. But my honest thoughts about him being general manager for Resurrection, it should prove to be very that should change up the pace of the land for sure. May never know. The assistant general manager may bring in some new people that we may have never seen before.
Wait,
Him
wait,
making
wait.
moves,
New people?
maybe new people. You may never know.
You like that idea, though? New people?
I like the fact that having new people and him making moves like that, that should prove significant for assistant GM. So, in my honest opinion, I do feel like that having an assistant GM should be very significant for Resurrection. Honestly, that is my honest opinion.
I think Steven's a bright mind. I think that Steven's a great talent. He's got a great mind for the sport. He's certainly going to do a great job with the Resurrection Wrestling Patreon page, where I know a podcast is going to come out there. They're going to do some different things about Resurrection Wrestling, and he's obviously wrestling's greatest referee. He's going to be wrestling's greatest interviewer. He's probably going to be wrestling's greatest photographer. So he's a true jack of all trades. And Cameron Cage would like to say, Steven might help me get that cage back up and going after lockdown. Well, he would be an old face, though, not a new face.
Like I said before, having him back in the game would be it would change up the layout quite.
And he's got unfinished business with you, because I want to remind you something else. Because if I recall correctly, there was a match between the Nemesis James Taylor and Cameron Cage. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you come out right before the match was going to have a finish? And Cameron Cage very well could have won that match. If I'm not mistaken, you came out there, and a lot of people would say that you, in a way, gave an underhanded assist to the Nemesis James Taylor. And maybe even some would say, because of your interference, you put James Taylor into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame there.
Yeah, I did interfere in that match.
You did. And why did you interfere in that? Because that was a match that Cameron Cage thought that he had. And, I'm sure James Taylor's not complaining. He's the Nemesis, but that could have changed the fate right now. Listen, next Sunday after the Super Bowl, maybe it was Cameron Cage going into the Hall of Fame instead of James Taylor.
That is true. That's true. Hey, that brings a great point to that. But at the same time, with Mr. Cage, he has also screwed me so many times, which is exactly why I did it.
So no regrets there. No regrets.
And no regrets. No, of course not. No regret can even come over my mind when it comes to that. It's just a vendetta that me and him have.
And like you said, that's going to be a vendetta that you guys are never going to be able to ever finish in your lives. I mean, that's basically it seems like a permanent vendetta almost.
Right.
That's what it seems like, so I guess we'll have to find out one more time. That's the banner, February the 17th. It's 13 days from now, 4680 Walnut Grove, Memphis, Tennessee, at the Second Baptist Church. Doors open 4:15, bell time 5 o'clock. Adults, $7. Kids, 12 and under, $5. And if I'm not mistaken, this actually starts President's Day weekend. So what better way to start the weekend off, the extra weekend? Kids might be off from vacation from school, to go out there and watch the likes of King Rage and Drake Golddragon square it off. I have to ask you, King Rage, because certainly you've been really well established, but have you ever thought about maybe in other ways or doing different things? Because, we speak about people all the time, and, we spoke about your goals, and people talked about traveling to different places. And, you're a guy that certainly has, a resume and certainly has a history. And, are there things that you'd like to do that you haven't yet done in this sport?
Well, probably winning another championship outside of my company.
Oh, how would you figure to do that, though? Because I thought you were a Resurrection Wrestling employee.
Yeah, that's true. But going other places doesn't really sound too bad to me.
Oh, yeah? Doesn't sound too bad? Doesn't sound too bad?
It really doesn't. Me traveling to other places and then fighting other people and getting to know other people's styles and things, because it's different in other places. It's very different.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Listen, there's plenty of places we cover on Sportswire all the time that are totally different, and no company's the same, right? Because that wouldn't be any fun. And I want to say hello to Jules NYC. Jules is here, and I know Jules was a little upset because we didn't give anybody notice for the show, but this was really done literally right before we went on the air. So I know people are kind of tuned in or not tuned in. And the reason that is because this is basically kind of like one of those last minute spur of the moment ones that we kind of did because contractually we're obligated to Resurrection Wrestling Month on February. So if you're out there and didn't see the interview, it's because we kind of didn't really get a chance to formally just go out there. So we're doing it on shotgun. So definitely, Jules, thank you for tuning in. There's definitely, we didn't tell anybody. It was just, I went on the air. It takes me 20 minutes to set up to do these things. So we want to make sure that people are out there. We're going to certainly promote it after we're done with the interview here. But this was kind of what you'd call a shotgun. This was a shotgun interview here. We went shotgun almost, kind of like football, because obviously, we're still in the season kind of. So we ran the true 2-minute drill here, and kind of true to our word, we went on here, and obviously we're here. So thank you, Jules, for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you. We love all the great things that you do in commenting on Sportswire Radio. So we hope that you tune in, and hopefully you're here with us also at 6:30 p.m. because we're going to have the war criminal, Dylan Andrews. He's going to be here, and he really was a war criminal. He fought in the war. He's going to talk about his experiences, and I hope that you enjoy it. I hope everybody else enjoys it. But thank you, Jules, for tuning in, and she wants to watch King Rage. Well, that's why we're here. And like I said, a lot of people want to watch him, and that's why we're here right now, because this was literally a shotgun kind of call, because it is Resurrection Wrestling Month on Sportswire Radio, and we wanted to be able to correctly oblige to the company and give them the opportunity to promote their show. And that's what we're doing here. But before I go back and continue to give our rose and bouquets to Jules and others, Cameron Cage comes back. Don't worry, worrying about when I screwed you, and don't worry about my plans to take that crown and kingdom away from you. But I'm still going to say it. He's not an employee of Resurrection, so you got to worry about people that are in the company, because Cameron Cage, it seemed like it was a one-time only deal.
True. That's as long as he is out of Resurrection for right now, I don't need to worry about him.
Would you like to see him back in Resurrection? If you're being honest, would you like to see him back in Resurrection?
Yeah, I would. To be honest, yes, I would.
And why shouldn't he be? Go ahead. Why shouldn't he be? We would like to see him here.
Why shouldn't he be? I mean, hey, and honestly, he has his own due. He has to go after the Prince for ending his career. And to be honest, for his rightful claim at the world title, he can also get that as well. But by all means, he would have to get through me as well, because I was supposed to be his match, not the Prince. So going up against him, hey, that would be a very nice match. Another banger that we had to put on in front of the crowd, yes. But me showing him and proving to him that I can beat him when it matters most again, then yeah, I like to take that. So yes, I would love to see Mr. Cameron Cage come back into Resurrection. What's
your opinion on the Wild Beast Adrian Prince as the new Resurrection Wrestling World Champion?
My opinion on that is I couldn't believe that he finally did it. And he actually got what he was looking for, and that was his last chance. Because if that didn't happen, then, well, the Prince would have never been Resurrection World Heavyweight Champion, ever.
Some would say, though, that he didn't win fairly, though, as the Resurrection Champion. Some would say that he needed certainly help outside of his own doing. I mean, if you buy into that. I mean, what do you make of that?
Oh, well, I definitely believe in that, because, yeah, he did. He did need help to win that championship. And as far as I'm concerned, well, I'm willing to face the Prince, if possible, anytime sooner than later, if he does retain his title against the West Memphis Kid after lockdown. And looking forward to the future of the company and everything like that, it seems like that I feel as if it's inevitable, because for him being Resurrection World Champion, I don't acknowledge him at all. You want to know why? The reason why is that, like I told you before, he hasn't beaten me. So as soon as he beats me, he can go around saying that, oh, I'm the best world champion of Resurrection all he wants. He can say that he's a beast. But the beast has been treated like a little puppy when it comes to me. That's literally my son. Of course.
Okay, well, and let me ask you, though, a follow-up to that, as we are here with Rage, King Rage himself, the former Resurrection Wrestling Champion of the world. He is also the former Knockout Wrestling Champion of the world, and he'll be in action on the 17th of February for the National Championship against Drake Golddragon in a steel cage at Resurrection Wrestling's upcoming show called Lockdown, which you can watch on TikTok at Resurrection pro wrestling. So make sure you go out there onto the TikTok page of Resurrection Wrestling. The show starts at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 6 p.m. Eastern Time here in the New York area. So make sure if you're out there, you like to watch the show, you actually have the opportunity to do so on the Resurrection Wrestling TikTok page. You can also support them as well through Instagram and YouTube channels, also Patreon and the Redbubble store. Okay, so let me ask you though, I would have to think, though, that the West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady, in the shape that he's in, we're not going to get him at full strength. So advantage is still going to be Adrian Prince, because we saw what happened at the end of Elevation 33 with the West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady. And it almost seems to me like it's fool's gold for him to invoke that rematch clause. Do you agree that West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady, is at a significant and severe disadvantage here because of the state that he's in after what the wild beast Adrian Prince had did to him to retain and reclaim that World Heavyweight Championship for the first time in his career?
Well, I do want to say that even if Mr. Brady is hurt or he's injured in any type of way, shape, or form, I do disagree that he shouldn't use that rematch clause when it come up to lockdown. I recommend.
But don't you want to use it when you're at full strength and 100%? And he clearly wasn't 100%. I mean, you have to think that you've been a champion. You've been in that spot. You know the deal. You've defended that championship in main events. I mean, I think the smart move would be to, take a couple weeks off, come back maybe in March. We have a show in the middle of the month, right around St. Patrick's Day weekend, right the day before St. Patrick's Day. I mean, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, but I do see why he would be confident, though. I mean, think about it, Mr. Bryce. It is the Prince out of all people. If he's just gonna need help again on a half-wounded Brady, what good of a champion is he? What if he does get help after that match? Thinking about that, it's just I don't see why. Why wouldn't he use that rematch clause?
Well,
If
I
I
guess.
were in his shoes, then yeah, that would happen for
Okay, well,
me.
maybe hypothetically, you say, you know what, the Wild Beast Adrian Prince in a one-on-one match can't beat the West Memphis Kid Ronnie Brady, but the facts are is that this isn't a steel cage, and the condition that the West Memphis Kid Ronnie Brady is in, I would say if I'm Ronnie Brady, I would certainly take a couple of weeks off, recover from those injuries, and come back in March and see then the way the landscape continues to play out in Resurrection Wrestling. That would be kind of the way I go about it. But you know what? It's not my call. It's the West Memphis Kid, Ronnie Brady's call. And he's the one that has to deal with the wild beast, Adrian Prince. So we'll have to find out. And that'll be the 17th of February here. We got about 20 or 25 more minutes here with the one and only Mr. King Rage himself. And certainly what an honor it is as we are in the middle now of Resurrection Wrestling Month here on Sportswire Radio. We want to thank, obviously, Joseph Tibbs, our general manager. Also want to thank our assistant general manager here, Stephen Silvestri, for giving us the opportunity to continue to cover Resurrection Wrestling. Stay tuned to all Resurrection channels for more information on the Lockdown show itself. And as we're coming toward the end of the show, I wanted to ask you in terms of a show like this, and we have the likes of Jimmy Controversy working here, Mikey Anarchy, only the GTS Intercontinental Champion, Mac 10 is in the Carnage Club. Now, I know you've been a top draw. I know you've been a main eventer, though. But what is it like, though, sharing a locker room with, let's say, big names and heavy hitters like Mikey Anarchy, Mac 10, and Jimmy freaking Controversy?
Sharing the locker room with them, it has actually been so much of an honor, honestly. And actually like seeing them out live. Like I'm not such of a hardcore guy, I will admit. No, I'm
Oh,
not.
I know that. No, listen, it's not for everybody. Hardcore and deathmatch wrestling is not for everybody. Some people like the old school. Remember, we're in Memphis, right? We think about Memphis. What is Memphis is known for? The old days of world class. The old days of the Lawlers, the Jarretts. I mean, they weren't really hardcore wrestlers. I mean, Jerry Lawler used to famously say, "Extremely crappy wrestling" is a way to mention ECW. So, wrestling and hardcore wrestling if you think about the history of it, it's never really been a hotbed in the South. It's always been more of, something in the Northeast, obviously with, Mick Foley and, Terry Funkle. Terry Funk's from Texas, but he kind of really was more global. But, usually the people that have been kind of the big stars in the hardcore deathmatch world, they come from either the West or they come from the North. So we're kind of in traditional, more, let's say, Lawler, Jarrett, Von Erich, Flair territory.
Mm, yes, sir. Admittedly, but what I won't, what I won't really like to say, I won't say this though. Hardcore wrestling, it may not be for everybody. That's true,
I
but
love it,
I
by the
won't.
way. I love it. I do love it.
I do too. Actually, I do. It's something. It's something. If I really tapped into it though, yeah, I could do it. I know I could.
Let me ask you a follow up. When you have guys like Jimmy Controversy who've wrestled Tommy Dreamer, everybody knows Tommy Dreamer in the wrestling world. Tommy Dreamer has been there, done that. He's very well should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. If they were smart, they would put him in. Well, we have a Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. I'll put him in our Hall of Fame if that's certainly something that he doesn't get in this year for. But when you have a guy like Controversy who's wrestled some of the biggest names ever in this sport, James Ellsworth, Tommy Dreamer, Pitbull, Gary Wolf, Mikey Anarchy's the GTS Intercontinental Champion for the seventh biggest company in the world. I know you've been in main events, and I know you've been a world champion and a top draw, but do you ask those guys for advice on anything in terms of just maybe what you might have in terms of your future plans?
Do I ask them for advice?
Any advice, anything like that? Because we've asked some of the guys. Dustin, we spoke with about it. Obviously, Cameron Cage, I asked him his perspective from afar on watching it. I've asked Steven Silvestri. I've asked D'Angelo LaFlame those same questions. So we've asked a number of the guys that have, working in Resurrection, if they had asked advice to those guys, like, again, a Controversy or an Anarchy or a Mac 10, certainly.
I haven't asked them for advice. No, not yet.
Okay.
And so to speak, but I've spoken to Mr. Jimmy. I've spoken to him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I have. I've came in contact with him in the locker room, and then of course, we've talked about a couple of things. Actually, yes, yeah.
Okay,
But
all right.
advice. No, I've never asked him for advice though. It's just when it came to hardcore stuff, I left it at the door for me. For right
Understood. Totally. Listen, you know what? Everybody's different. There's no question that I don't blame you on that. And Jules loves hardcore wrestling. Jules probably wants to hit me with a kendo stick right now. Probably wants to hit me with a chair or some barbed wire because she was mad. And a lot of people I know are probably mad that we didn't kind of promote this. But just like I said, it was a shotgun. This was really like last second for us to go on the air. So I'm sure, Jules, if you want the opportunity, I'll give you a free shot. I'll give you 2 free shots even if you want to hit me with a chair. Hopefully, well, maybe with barbed wire. But people are mad. Listen, people I know, and we have a lot of loyal fans on Sportswire. And, obviously we want to keep everybody happy. We love everybody on Sportswire, certainly Jules as well. Obviously, great supporter and, very beautiful persons. We want to make sure that obviously, we keep people, happy and continue to support us. But I can understand your points on Jimmy. Let me ask you, though, about the experience of being in TBW. That's something I know you can definitely talk a lot about because TBW is a place that I'm sure you have a few thoughts on. You've obviously beat the Woo Man Gage Flair. It's the Atomic Titan's birthday today, the Hardcore King. We call him Hollywood Titan now on Sportswire Radio. And you were in their main event. And, what was that experience like working in TBW and, working with some of their guys? Because a lot of them have become staples in Resurrection here. Obviously, Mr. Allen, the owner and founder of TBW in our Hall of Fame. Mr. Titan most certainly has been here many, many times on Sportswire Radio. Jacob Young, the Grim Reaper Joe Anderson's been a part of things in TBW and at Resurrection. So I'm curious on, what's it been like working with those guys in TBW?
Talking about those guys, it's and like seeing them and actually, which brings me back, it takes me back to memory lane, like all over again. So it makes me think that the last time that I couldn't even believe it when TBW actually hit me up. See, it was actually crazy. I was actually in high school last year in like last January and everything like that. It's just thinking about it now, they actually put me on the map and they hit me up and they told me that they really liked the talent that I was doing and they hope for me to actually come down there and like just come up there and then just wrestle for them. And then knowing me, I had to ask permission first. I couldn't just do it. But at actual
Sure.
permission, I was just like, heck yeah, like I want to do it, yeah, of course. And like, and then they introduced me to a lot of those guys, and a lot of those guys actually had a lot of respect for me. They've actually cheered me on, and for them to have like such like a big fan base and
Oh
hearing
my
like,
God. I mean, there are people I know in the UK, British wrestlers, who have actually said to me off the, and I don't want to say the names because obviously there's always this kind of like fourth wall with wrestling and non-pro wrestling and stuff like that. But they've actually said to me, "Oh, you know the guys in TBW?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they've been coming on Sportswire for like a year. I know these guys on a first-hand basis. They message me and we speak non-wrestling, and yeah, I know pretty much. I would say like half the locker room. I mean, I would say we've had Jacob Young's been on, Manny Cobra's been on, obviously." Titan's been here countless times. Mr. Allen's been here. James Taylor, when he was in the company, has been on here. Jack Delta, when he was in quote unquote TBW, he's been here. Of course, we had a day dedicated to Jack Delta. So a lot of guys that have graced through TBW are a part of that company. Commissioner Beast has been in our comment section. Yeah, we know those guys very well. And yeah, people around the world, they know Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. And Barstool 2 weeks ago mentioned them. Barstool mentioned them.
that made me. I'm not gonna lie, like hearing that Barstool mention them, it's actually made me proud of them. Actually, it made me proud, and then not because like of my own success. It's just that I feel like us as like backyard and company like that, it's actually like it's getting out there and really shows that like a lot of people can be fans, like even if they might just be famous. Hey, that that seems to me that I'm not gonna say that they feel like that they made it, but it makes their confidence a lot more higher than most
Oh,
people.
listen, I think when we first started having them come on, they had maybe 4,800 subscribers on YouTube. Now
Mm,
they have like 6,700. So we're talking about in like 11 months, they gained like 1,900 subscribers alone. So that tells you that, they're a company that people know of. Just Jimmy Controversy, right? Everybody knows Jimmy Controversy, even if you're not a hardcore wrestling fan. People know the name Jimmy Controversy. It's like TBW. So the fact that you had those experiences, and on top of that, you defeated the last two heavyweight champions, and including the current champion. There's got to be unfinished business. You got to be back in TBW, especially if you win 13 days from now as the national champion and can find a way to maybe pick up the scraps from whatever left is from Adrian Prince and the West Memphis Kid Ronnie Brady. You could be going right back there in another battlefield, maybe in August again, and this time it could be you and Russell Cooper, another champion versus champion match. This time you're walking away with 2 championships on your shoulders, and you could have more bragging rights because you've already defeated Russell Cooper, unlike the last guy you wrestled from that company in a main event because you never wrestled him before. But this time you're going to go into a match with Russell Cooper where you've already defeated him and could be a double champion. Just
hmm
saying.
It's a thought, and it's a thought that could be on my mind. That could be the plan.
Could be, could be. Well, you know what? I hope that plan could be the case because if you want to follow Resurrection Wrestling, you can do that here on Instagram at Resurrection Pro Wrestling. Also, YouTube and TikTok at Resurrection Wrestling. And TikTok is where you're going to want to watch the show that Resurrection Wrestling is going to have here on the 17th of February. It's called Lockdown, and our guest here, King Rage, is going to be in the ring against Drake Golddragon for the national championship. And of course, he won that right to get a shot at the national championship in a gauntlet match. And he is defeated the man that is the current TBW champion, Mr. Russell Cooper. So Rage has got a lot of bragging rights. He's got a lot of momentum right now, and we're talking about all of it here before the 17th. And one more time, it is Resurrection Wrestling Month here on Sportswire Radio, and my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here. And I want to thank everybody that is tuned in out there. And Jules certainly loves Atomic Titan because Jules loves Atomic Titan a lot more than she loves somebody like me, and because obviously, she's definitely, mad about certainly not letting us know about the show, but it happens. At this point, Rage, I got to be honest. I'll make you feel better. I think in the last like 90 days, I've done like 109 shows on Sportswire Radio. In fact, this is how it's going to tie into you. In fact, I've done so many shows the last 3 months that some guy you probably heard of, even Jack Delta, messaged me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, you ever thought about taking a break? You ever thought if you ever want to like sit down and kind of, maybe take a step back, I know from experience, maybe I could talk to you about it. I was like, nah, you know what? I'll keep going at this point. The people want it. And then Mr. Allen, Joshua Allen, who's in a Hall of Fame, actually said, you know what? Maybe you should do an all-night stream. I said at that point, I said, maybe you want me to die on the air or maybe die from, not being able to speak much. Look, I mean, I'm sure people like Jules would want that because it's obviously she's mad, she's upset, but certainly I hope that's not the case. I don't think I can do an all-night stream, but be that as it may, I mentioned Jack Delta and I mentioned him, right? And obviously, once upon a time, he wrestled Hollywood Tight. Once upon a time, he wrestled James Taylor, the Nemesis. And obviously, Cameron Cage is a man that wrestled the Nemesis, James Taylor. Now, I'm sure that you'd like to wrestle some people as dream opponents in the yard. And I'm sure that there are some places that you might want to do that in. And, Jack Delta was here on Sportswire Radio, and he's wrestled in, oh, by the way, 8 states for 23 promotions. And I'm sure that would be somebody one day, Jack Delta, that you'd love to face off with, and maybe you could do that in some other places we might see you in one day.
Facing Jack Delta doesn't seem too bad. It really doesn't.
Facing Jack Delta, because think about it, right? I mean, he's faced Titan, he's faced Taylor. I mean, you've been in TBW, you've faced their best, you've beat their best. I mean, you're in Resurrection. Resurrection's one of the premier companies to be. Jimmy Controversy loves Resurrection. Mikey Anarchy's a part of Resurrection now. Mac 10's a part of Resurrection. So I would have to think that, Jack Delta's absolutely on your radar. And it's not like we had a guy, his name was ADT, right? Some people confuse him with the security system. But ADT, Jack Delta was almost kind of like, some would say, this is not my opinion, maybe lowering the standards of his to face off with an ADT. But you, on the other hand, not the case. And if anything, Mr. Delta would certainly be going with somebody mano a mano, a similar style of his, a similar strength, a similar size, a similar agility. And he's been in the state of Tennessee. So there's no question, Rage. You are a king. You want to certainly show why you're the king. And Jack Delta's won nearly 30 championships in your career. You've been a 3-time champion of the world. I don't know if it could happen at Resurrection. I don't know if it could happen at TBW. I could certainly ask Steven Silvestri, our assistant general manager, Joseph Tibbs, our general manager, or even ask Joshua Allen, the owner of TBW. But I know one thing as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Bryce. I think you and Jack Delta would be another dream match. It would be even more of a dream match than the one that we saw you wrestle with some guy who you definitely threw a lot of shade at.
Yeah. Okay.
You like that one.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That actually, that hit me. That hit me.
I try to do that. I try to hit people. You
did. You most definitely got me right here. You hit that for sure. That was good. But fighting Jack Delta, yes. That I feel like that if I do negotiate with that plan and fighting him, then I see.
You think maybe that could happen in some different places around? There's some companies that he even worked for, because I hear through the grapevine he's worked for some companies you might one day want to go through for, apparently. I mean, I hear a lot of different things out there on the street. I hear that, D'Angelo LaFlame, I hear, is traveling, and he spoke about it here on Sportswire. He's coming back, oh, by the way, right after the 17th to talk about what's going to happen at Lockdown. And I'm sure that you certainly will have plans. Maybe you don't tell us tonight, but I'm sure that if you're the king and you want to show you're the king, you're going to have to show why you're King Rage, in addition to being in Resurrection Wrestling, but I'm sure in, many other places around the United States.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though.
Yeah.
When it comes to Jack Delta, wherever he goes will be wherever I go. Now, I'll put it like that. That's just as simple as it's going to be. It doesn't matter where we are. If wherever Jack Dustin feels like that he wants to go, if he wants to fight me, doesn't really matter. I'll go wherever he goes. He can set it up, or I'll set it up. It doesn't really matter. That's fine with me. I'll do whatever needs necessary, and I'll prove why I am the king.
He hasn't been in there last I checked with a king before.
Nah, but just like how you just hit me for a truck.
I hit you with a ton of bricks, huh?
Yeah, you did. You most definitely did. You
Well,
definitely did that.
I told you Sportswire is the big league. It's not Instagram Live. It's not you go on a show and the presenter doesn't know anything about you. It's not when you go on a podcast and the podcaster will go to a wrestler and go, hey, what did you think of SmackDown? Hey, who would be your fantasy booking? Or, hey, who would be your 2K3 character? No, we don't do that on Sportswire. We actually know what's going on because this is the home of all wrestling matters. So I have eyes in the back of my head. I watch all this stuff. I know people like Jules would be like, well, you have no life. And yeah, that's actually true because usually all I do these days is watch wrestling matches. In fact, I watch so much wrestling that somebody actually, King Rage, attempted to call me Tuesday when I woke up. And they were like, I haven't heard from you. Why haven't I heard from you? Are you in hibernation? Are you alive? I'm like, well, if you want to speak with me, I suggest that you don't call me and just come on to YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579. That's where you can catch me because otherwise I'm not going to talk to you on the phone for like an hour or 2 hours because usually I'm on Sportswire in this people's house speaking with wrestlers like you, King Rage. So that's my answer to people. So that's really what I'm up to. So that's why I know what's going on and that's why I wanted to hit you with that. So obviously maybe we'll see one day if we see you wrestle in other places. But I know TBW is a place that works with Resurrection that we would certainly like to see you at. You know, in the remaining time, in the remaining closing thoughts that we have with you, I know you're a busy man. You got to get ready for training. You got to get ready for those 3 a.m. workouts. You got to get ready for the almost like think about the Rocky movies where Rocky was going out there, almost like with Apollo Creed. And obviously, we want to send our prayers and condolences to everybody impacted by the loss of Carl Weathers. Of course, Carl Weathers, the legendary Apollo Creed, and he passed away. And also, if you're a fan of Adam Sandler movies, Happy Gilmore. But certainly, I want to give my thoughts and prayers. And actually, before we do, I will actually, because somebody tuned in here on Twitch, and I'll ask out because you're tuning in for the first time. And if you're on Twitch, you need to follow me at Sportswire Radio. And if you're on YouTube, you need to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Sportswire Radio 6579. Because if you don't, I can assure you, you're going to be missing out on all the latest happenings in the world of wrestling because I am the only place out there that covers backyard wrestling, underground wrestling, semi-pro wrestling, independent wrestling, professional wrestling, and wrestling around the world. Quick thoughts on The Rock taking Cody's spot at Mania this year. My thoughts on it is that Cody knew about it from weeks ahead of time. My thoughts is that it's a business decision, and my thoughts are on it is that Cody Rhodes is still won the last 2 Rumbles. And while if it was me personally, I would have Cody go up against Roman one more time. But I would also say tune into SmackDown Live this Friday. Tune into Raw on Monday because I would remind everybody this. The Rock and Roman never said one word to each other. So how can we assume if you're into wrestling, if you're into storytelling, right? We're all into storytelling. So I'm going to answer this for you, right? Because the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, I watch more wrestling than anything else. I even know more about wrestling these days than what my mutual fund account looks like. I don't even want to look at my mutual fund account. So I'm going to actually tell you right now that The Rock and Roman didn't exchange any words. How can we know that they're going to officially wrestle at WrestleMania 40? And further, we still don't know what Cody's even said. And that's why you got to tune in. And also, you got to remember, The Rock hasn't wrestled one match more than 8 seconds since 2012, WrestleMania 28 against John Cena. So these are reasons why you got to tune in. Let's not jump to conclusions. And I'm sure that we're going to have a story that people like. And for you, I know you don't have to answer. You can be very politically correct on this. I'm going to answer it for you, King Rage. At the end of the day, the WWE's business, their bottom line, well, still not as big as Resurrection because Resurrection's got the biggest business right now going on in the world. But the facts are WWE, their business right now is the best it's ever been. So apparently people at the end of the day are buying tickets and they're going to shows, and they don't seem to have a problem with Roman as champion. Now, personally speaking, I think that Roman should lose the title, but I'm still going to say you got to stay tuned. You got to stay tuned. That's all. Did I answer that good enough for you? You like me to say something else?
You did, and I'll take that.
You gotta listen. You gotta watch. Listen, you gotta watch. People, you can't assume that everything's gonna happen that hasn't happened. They still didn't say a single word to each other.
No, they just stared off.
If we're all listen in the business of wrestling right now, I am technically kind of a promoter because we have a radio station. We want all wrestling to succeed because we are here on sportswireradio.org. But the facts are is that they haven't said anything to each other. So we have no idea. Also, on top of that, there's a little show in a country called Australia called Elimination Chamber. And I have no doubt there's going to be something really big that's going to happen there. So, sir, thanks a lot, 9,000. Definitely thank you. Sir, thank you a lot for tuning in. And I hope you tune in 9,000 times to Sportswire Radio. And guess what? You're going to want to tune in at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time with the war criminal, Dylan Andrews. And on top of that, I'm going to be talking about SmackDown, Raw, and more, 10 o'clock Eastern time this Friday. So if you want to join the conversation, join me back then. And also, if you want to sub to my YouTube channel, do that also at Sportswire Radio 6579, because I promise you, you will definitely be tuning into something that you'll enjoy and sub. Okay, so I got that out of the way. I answered those questions for you. So for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, what are your final words to Drake Golddragon ahead of the 17th of February?
Bring your best, Dragon. Once you bring your best, and then you think you can push me to the limit, I'll make sure I will match your energy. And then you'll still see you can't hang around main event talent. That's all I got to say.
So Drake Golddragon's days are numbered.
Pretty much. Count them.
All right, I got 13 days. 2 more questions. Cameron Cage, any final words?
If we somehow travel at the same time and we end up in the same company sometime in the future, maybe even sooner than expected, or if you even do think about stepping right back into Resurrection, which is something that I would want to see, you're going to fight me again. And I'm looking forward to it as well. But that's all I got to say with him as well.
My last question, and I saved the best for last. If I were to say to you, one day in 2024, that you would potentially be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, what would you say?
Dang, man.
I told you this wouldn't be Instagram Live.
No, you did. It's just one day me, out of all people, being inducted.
Why not you? You've already been in the main event. You figuratively and literally been in the main event that drew over 4,000 plus views. I mean, some guys come on here and say, yeah, I should be in the Hall of Fame. But, you know, statistically speaking, you were at a main event of a show that drew 4,000 views. I mean, how many people could necessarily say that? You were the top dog. How many people can say that they've defeated the last 2 Tennessee Backyard Wrestling World Heavyweight Champions? How many people can say simultaneously they were the last and the first world champion of any company? How many people can say that they're undefeated against the current Resurrection Wrestling World Champion? How many people can currently say that they're going to be in one of the biggest matches for a show that's going to have sold hundreds of tickets? How many people can say that you're going to be seen in the opportunity in different states around, let's say, the United States this year in 2024? How many people can call themselves a king? Maybe a king should be in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame.
No one but me can say
You're a
that.
king, right? You're a king, right?
That's true. No
Shouldn't the
one.
Hall of Fame be fit for a king?
I'd be really hurt if it wasn't.
So you just answered my question. So maybe you come back on in a couple months down the road and you're holding some gold, and maybe you'll have a ceremony, and maybe we'll have to get a king's crown out and put the crown on you simultaneously while we induct you into the sport. That was funny, by the way. Into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, right? I guess maybe that could be an interesting possibility.
That is an interesting possibility, and I very much appreciate it.
So we'll have to stay tuned. We'll have to watch you on the 17th of February at TikTok at Resurrection Wrestling. Also check you out on patreon.com/Resurrection Pro Wrestling, and also at the redbubble.com merchandise store where you can buy some Resurrection Wrestling merchandise. And Jules here, our queen of Sportswire Radio, would like to say that she'll be counting down. And we definitely want to send our love to Jules, obviously, and anybody else that tuned in, because obviously this was kind of, last second, but I promise you that if you tuned in, you'll see it again. And I definitely think that this is a guy. I've watched you a while. I watched you last summer, about 6 or 7 months ago in Battlefield, and you were definitely a guy a lot of people said to keep an eye on. And here we are, all these months later. What I've learned in the wrestling world, it's a small world, and everybody kind of knows one another at this point. And at this point, everybody seems to come on Sportswire, so it was only a matter of time before we connected. And I want to give you the floor now because I think the talking is over. I think it's now time to get to action, because it's the action, not words. You and Gold Dragon are going to be locked down. I'm going to get Gold Dragon's words here probably right before the 17th. We'll see if he can top what you had to say. And the floor is yours, my friend. Fire away any social media you want to plug that we haven't. And be my guest. And I look forward to seeing you here in a few months with some gold and maybe a king's crown to put on your head, and maybe induct you into the Sportswire Radio's Hall of Fame.
Anything else that I'd have to say about this whole situation? First of all, thank you, Jules. I don't know who you are and what you're doing. I really appreciate that for supporting me. I really do.
Well, she certainly supports you a lot more than people like myself, so I definitely want to make sure you know that. So,
for sure. So, another thing is that, to make this quick and simple, other companies that have been trying to, fly me out and everything like that, want me to show up. Yeah, I will. This year.
This year, really? This year?
This year. I will make sure this year, I will make sure that I'll make my trips, my stops. Last year, it was a bit complicated, I must say. But this year being, I told a lot of people that this year, it's the King's year. To finally have a free reign and everything like that. Oh yeah, I'll make sure that I do support my resurrection and through, because this is what I bleed. This is what I want.
Me too.
This is what I want.
And I'll tell you what, I'll look forward to it. Go ahead.
But my goal won't change. Being world champion of Resurrection again is another thing that I want before this end of the year.
You know what? If you were out there, you asked me a question about Cody maybe finishing his story. It sounds to me that there's plenty of chapters to write in the story of King Rage, because he wants, first step, February the 17th, that national championship. Next step, reclaim his Resurrection World Heavyweight Championship. Next step after that, maybe have another match with Russell Cooper and prove who's the real world champion of Tennessee. And then even after that, maybe a state near you. So it seems like 2024 is going to have a lot of goals, a lot of places, and even a lot of gold. So we'll wind up seeing, will King Rage eventually be the pound-for-pound true world champion of Tennessee? You'll only have to stay tuned and check him out on Instagram at resurrect_rage, and follow Resurrection Wrestling on all those platforms. And also, it is Resurrection Wrestling Month here on Sportswire Radio. So there we have it. I want to thank everybody here that's tuned in. Also want to thank Jacoby, who's been here before with us. And obviously, we've had Steven Silvestri multiple times, Controversy, Mac 10, Mikey Anarchy, Dustin Alexander, Cameron Cage. It's been a great list. Neff has been here. So I want to make sure we acknowledge everybody. And My friend, congratulations on all the previous success. We'll see if future success is ahead, and can't wait to see you back here in a few months and put that king's crown on your head and see some gold on that shoulder, and maybe give you a ceremony that'll certainly be one that'll be a king for a lifetime on Sportswire Radio, my friend. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryce. I really appreciate it.
You got it. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here on Sportswire Radio. We were here with coverage for Resurrection Wrestling's month here on Sportswire Radio with the man challenging for the national championship, the number one contender. His name is King Rage himself, and King Rage will be in the ring also here on Resurrection Wrestling's February 17th show called Lockdown. Jules is subscribed on TikTok. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And if you're on Twitch out there, sir, thanks a lot, 9,000. I'm at Twitch at Sportswire Radio. Hope you subbed. But until then, I'll be back at 6:30 in a little while with the war criminal Dylan Andrews. And I'll be back here Tuesday night to induct Dark Chron and Matthew Forsaken into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. But good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. And Resurrection Wrestling cannot wait for more coverage here later this